What is going on, my home studio addicts? Joel here again today with Mr. Sebastian back there, and do we have a video for you today? This video is the first video in a three-part series on how we can get our home recorded snares to sound amazing. If you've ever recorded drums in your home, you probably have noticed that the snare is not too flattering. We never really get an amazing sounding snare tone because we're usually working with budget drums. Maybe the drummer has good drums, but it's not tuned correctly. So we have all that to deal with when we're miking up drums and recording them at home. So this video is going to be about taking out all the ugly frequencies. Then the next video will be about where we should be boosting in our snare drum. And then the third video, I'll tie in the bottom snare mic. So we're in a project that I've already mixed, but I've just taken this snare track and bypassed all my plugins on it. So let's just take a listen to what it sounds like. Well, maybe you should hear the snare in the context of the music first. So this is kind of a pop punk song.
All along waiting for you, maybe I'll see you next time. All along passing the time, and I'll see you next time. Hey, darling, are you falling? Are you just burning? Don't leave me guessing next.
Now this snare didn't start off sounding like that, so here's what we had in the beginning. So not awful, but definitely not a great snare tone. And first you notice all the bleed from the other drums, and that's because in my current studio, I record drums in kind of a small room. And when you have all those walls, you get all the sound bouncing back towards that snare mic. So even though this video is about EQ, I am going to gate this snare right off the bat. So let's just open up our gate, and I'm using the FabFilter gate, but you could use anything you want. And I usually just start with this snare long preset, adjust the threshold, and then bring the release back to where the tail is not super short, but yet not super long, because we don't want all that cymbal and tom bleed in there. So let's just turn this on and make our adjustments. And right there sounds about right. All right, now that we have our snare sounding decent, we got some of the bleed out of there, let's just pull up Pro Q2 and I will show you guys what I'm typically doing on a snare drum when it comes to cutting in EQ. All right, so I'm going to start like I normally would, and that would be just getting rid of all the low end and high end junk that we don't need. So with snares, I like to roll off typically to about 100 hertz, and then at the top end, usually to about 12K, where all that cymbal noise is. So let's do that. Okay, so there's not a huge difference in sound there, but we're going to lose a lot of that cymbal bleed as well as the kick drum that's coming through in the snare mic. We don't need any low end or super sub lows in our snare mic. The next spot I'm typically looking to cut is around 500 hertz. Now this is the notorious boxy or cardboard sound. So I'm going to find that just by taking my EQ and sweeping around for those frequencies that we don't like. Hear that? So that is the sound that you are looking for. So we're just going to take a little bit out here, but we don't want to cut too much because this can really kill a snare tone by taking too much of the mid range out. So we just took out a little over 3 dB there, but did you hear what happened when I dropped this way down? It totally killed the vibe of the snare, and we don't want that. The snare does need some mid-range, so don't totally go crazy with your cuts here. The last spot where I typically make a really narrow cut is around 300 hertz. Now, again, this is because of the small room that I'm recording drums in. You get a lot of buildup in some of these frequencies. So let's check around 300. So that is just a horrible sounding frequency right there. So like I said, I make a real narrow notch here because we still want to keep a lot of our low end here around 200 hertz. So just a real narrow cut here will do. Now this snare sound really won't start to take shape until we start boosting and get the bottom snare mic in there. So check out the next video for those tips. Guys, thanks for watching. Make sure to download your free Ultimate Home Studio Mix Guide. I made this for you guys so you could start getting your mixes sounding better. There's a lot of great information in there. And be sure to reach out if you have any questions or if you need any help with your mixes. Thanks.